Hello everybody, this is me, the Undead Viking, and this is another Tales from Behind the DM Screen. And now, this is actually kind of interesting because I have a recent story to tell, and maybe I learned a little bit something, and I know I do these videos and I talk about the fact that I've been running and playing Dungeons and Dragons for 4 decades basically, and I tend to think of myself as a pretty darn good dungeon master, but you can always succeed and fail, whatever. And I've definitely ran some bad campaigns in the past, and I'll tell some of those stories at some point. I mean, honestly, I've never really felt like I ran a great campaign. I feel like I've run good campaigns. I feel like I've had like 1 or 2 really, really good ones, but I definitely had some clunkers. But anyway, so recently, I'm burying the lead a little bit here. So, I mean, one of the cool things, there isn't many cool things that have come out of the quarantine, but on my weekly show, the Weekly Alaboom, and we just had one last night, it's just basically a bunch of people in the industry, good friends, people that when we meet each other at conventions in normal years, we will go out and have drinks and meals, and we'll play games, and it's just like we're just a really good core unit, right? And and we started this show 5 years ago, and it just kind of has a life of its own. It's not like it's not for everyone. It's definitely not for many people, honestly, judging from the number of people that watch it. But for whatever reason, we have a great deal of people that seem to dig it and seem to like watching it, and we like doing it. So, but anyway, one of my really, really good friends on that, a gentleman by the name of Forrest Bauer. If you play board games, I would strongly suggest taking out Bauer's Game Corner. He has been doing videos for 5 or 6 years now, and he definitely marches to the beat of his own drum, so to speak, and you'll never watch more unique stuff anywhere. He definitely takes chances and heads out there, so to speak. But anyway, he has a thing where he reaches out to some random board game celebrity and he invites them to come on the show. And he does that every single time he's on. He does it via Twitter. And he has he's only succeeded once, actually. And it was kind of a gimme because he got Chris Cluey to come on and hang out with us. Now, for those of you who don't know about Chris Cluey, he is a former professional football player. He was a punter for the Minnesota Vikings, which I'm from Minnesota, and I've been a fan of the Minnesota Vikings since I was a little kid. And so this was kind of neat that he came on the show and was talking with us. Now, to be fair, Chris and I had actually already hung out once before. He is a game designer as well, and I was at BGGCon 2 or 3 years ago, and he and I went out for dinner and had some drinks after I met him. I demoed his game, he taught me his game, and we ended up hanging out and having a really good time and talking about a ton of stuff, football related, game related, what have you. And since then, we've become pretty good friends. Now, so the whole thing is that while he was on the show that night, and now he shows up for the show on a fairly regular basis and hangs out, I mentioned to him, hey, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons now on Roll20, because we can't meet in person and play, right? And I said, would you be interested in playing? And he said, yeah, I'd love to. So it was kind of neat that most of the people in my game group are also Vikings fans. And so I was able to spring Chris Cluey on all of them. And I dug that. I really enjoyed that a lot. So anyway, where I'm going with this is that, so we've been playing Dungeons and Dragons on Roll20 for the since basically the pandemic started, and I think Roll20 is a really good tool. It's a really good I've been playing games on Tabletop Simulator, board games on Tabletop Simulator. I really like that. Roll20 has really added a lot, in my opinion, to us playing the game. Obviously be able to continue playing Dungeons & Dragons, but also just to be able to incorporate certain things Roll20 allows you to do that you normally would incorporate into your game, but you don't really do. For example, lighting. So lighting in games, in D&D games. Okay. So I've been told I sub-reference a lot in these videos. So I'm just gonna as a quick little aside. So you know how when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, and like you're like, oh, lighting is usually like, oh, I have dark vision, I can see, or oh, I have low light, so as long as there's a candle burning, I can see. But like humans and halflings and other races are unable to see in the dark. So you basically kind of ask them a question like, do you have a torch, or do you have a lantern, or do you have a light spell, or something like that. And as soon as they say, yeah, I do, that's the end of it, right? You just like, okay, cool, you can see. But what we forget is that, you know, light has some very specific rules to it. Like it will shine out to a certain distance, meaning like you can see up to like, you know, 15 feet away in bright light, and then after that it's like dim light for like another 15 feet or whatever, you know, whatever you happen to be using as your light source. So here is the cool thing about it. So if you just go to YouTube and like Google up Roll20 dynamic lighting, and you can see where like the game changes, like really changes, because when you're playing a game and you have all your miniatures on the board, your players are supposed to pretend, yeah, I can't see that orc, he's around the corner, or yeah, I don't know where you know that. I don't know where that particular creature is, because he's beyond the light and that thing can see in the dark and I can't, so I have to pretend I don't know that troll is there, but I know that troll is there. Well, with dynamic lighting, like they literally can't see it. Like the players are looking at their computer screens and they're like, I have no idea what's going on. Nobody's talking. Nobody's telling me there's a troll coming or anything like that. So I guess I'll just move forward. And actually, fairly recently, we were playing a game and Chris's character was ripped apart by a giant werewolf because of the fact that he basically didn't know the werewolf was there, went around a corner to attack. All of a sudden it's the werewolf's turn, he gets a critical hit, rips his monk in half. He had to make a new character. So it's added something a lot to it. And we've argued a little bit about that, but I think like stuff like that in Roll20 is really, really cool. But anyway, back to the story. So the thing that I've enjoyed, besides the fact that we can actually just play, is the fact that it seems to be like there's a lot of things that are automated, and there's a lot of things that there's reference material right there in front of you. I mean, there's lots of things about Roll20 I really, really like. As much that I've actually considered the possibility of you can create these like basically TV boxes that you'll put on your table, that you could then put the maps and everything on that, and then even if you're playing in person, you'd play Roll20 still. You'd just play it, you know, live in front of you. I don't know if I'll do that, I mean, because I am a big fan of using my own miniatures and stuff like that, but anyway, regardless. The whole point of this is that we were playing, there was a pretty, the campaign we were running is these, I mean, it's kind of a grim situation. I mean, there's this small village, several villagers have disappeared. I'm not going to go too deep into this because I don't know if my players are going to watch this and get spoilers or anything like that, but several villagers have disappeared, including some children. And they are currently, investigating what's going on, and it's turning out that, like, you know, the leaders of the village may be in on it, right? I mean, so it's like they're starting to question where the loyalties are or whatever. And so there's this character, and then this sheriff of the village, who he's kind of like, as an NPC, he's kind of stuck in a hard place. He has a pretty cushy job. All he has to do is just basically watch over this village and make sure that, you know, people just do what they're supposed to do. But for the most part, he doesn't really have to fight. He doesn't really have to do much. He can just sit back and enjoy his day and collect taxes and give them to the Baroness, who runs the land, and everybody's happy. But the players have engaged him in saying, look, he's kind of like that classic, like, character that, in movies, the befuddled sheriff that, just, one, doesn't really want to know that there's a problem, because then that means he has to do something. Two, he's like, I still have a duty to, like, my lord or lady. I'm sworn to follow them, and me being just kind of basically, even though I'm a sheriff, I'm still kind of a peasant. So, like, if I tried to arrest them, they would just have me killed. So, I mean, it's just like he's like, there's a self-preservation thing going on, but also it's like he wants to do the right thing, but he doesn't know if he can. He doesn't know if he has even the ability to do the right thing, and he isn't noble enough. Not like noble like as far as stature, but noble like his inner ethos isn't great enough for him to say, I've just got to do the right thing regardless. But the player characters have engaged him, and they've shown him information and evidence, and repeatedly, and they've been like, look, it's like there's something going on in this town, you've got to let us know. And like to the point where they've even found like a secret door in his guardhouse that like has obviously been used to like these prisoners that he thinks are escaping at night are actually being abducted from his guardhouse and being drug off for some horrible purpose. And so the characters have found this secret door, the secret trap door in his guardhouse, and so they've gone into it, and he's like, you've got one day, give me incontrovertible proof that like the Baroness and these people are all in it together. And prove to me that like this is going on, and I'll let you go. Anyway, so I'll go along. I'll go with you. I'll protect you. We will go, to the Archduke or whatever that controls the land, and we will present the situation, and we will have her arrested and what have you. So they go into this tunnel, they go fight, do some fights, whatever. They eventually make it into this dungeon, and they find the missing children. They finally found them. And they're just like, oh my gosh, we found the missing children. This is like, we've been looking for them for weeks, and we assumed they were dead, and actually one of them did die, and they knew they had it. Well, unbeknownst to them, the players have been shadowed constantly by a spy within the village, and the spy has watched the players go into the sheriff. Like, the spy actually has a business that's across the street from the sheriff's guardhouse, and they see the people go into there, and then the spy then went in to talk to the sheriff, who's an idiot, and say, well, what's going on? And because this woman, this spy, has a relationship, like literally in a relationship with the sheriff, like, he confides in her and says, this is what's going on, I don't know what to do, kind of thing. She says, oh my gosh, you've done the right thing or whatever. She immediately gets it, lets the Baroness know, lets everybody know what's going on. And the Baroness, sends some of her people down to the dungeons that, where the people are, to delay the players. And this is all me, saying this is what logically would happen, right? And then she sends her magician and her basically bodyguard warriors, these three tough guys, and says, you need to go there, because otherwise we're all gonna end up with our heads on the chopping block, literally, unless you go and you stop these people right now. And so they go and they're like, kill all the kids, kill all the PCs, and then we'll frame them for it. So the first thing that happens is they get there, and I rolled, and the magician basically casts suggestion on the sheriff to alter his mind, to basically make him change. Basically, they come out of the thing like, here's the kid, sheriff, we knew it all along, right? And he was just like, you're all under arrest for kidnapping these children and for killing them or whatever. And they're like, what? Just immediately. And they're like, and one of the characters like, screw this. And Chris's character actually was like, screw this. it's you know, and he's got a barbarian. He's like, it's axe chopping time. He's like, I'm done with this town. I'm done with the situation. I'm over it. And so he as he moves, and the sheriff's like, he's like, I don't want to have to fight, you know, and he's like, I realize you'll probably kill me, but, you know, I have a duty. And he draws his sword. And so the players, and some of the players are like, I actually like the sheriff, right? But, you know, here you go. And like, what are you going to do? All of a sudden the door bursts open, and the three bodyguards come rushing into the room. And the first thing they do is there was two. They rescued three people. There was two children and there was one adult. And one of the first things that happened is they cut down the adult, like basically, like, you know, knock him. He's got like 4 hit points. They hit him once. He goes to 0 hit points. Another one comes up and basically like guts him, you know, kills him, right? And they're like, oh Jesus, you know. And then like basically this base in this little tiny guardhouse, basically a knife fight in a phone booth starts happening. All these people going around, and like one of the first things, I back it up a little bit. One of the first things that happened was they tried to charm the sheriff and it didn't work, and then like the barbarian actually like knocked him unconscious. Like he was gonna kill him, and then he was like, you know what, I'll just do subdual damage, I'll knock him unconscious. And they threw the sheriff into his own cell and locked the door. And they were like, what are we going to do now? And that's when the people came barging in the door. So anyway, knife fight in a phone booth, going back and forth. Pretty tough fight. I mean, because they were already injured from leaving the dungeon. They hadn't had a chance to heal. So it was pretty neck and neck. One of the things that they do is like, there's this elf rogue, who her biggest concern was saving the children. So she and the warlock in the group rushed the kids out the window, and so then the warlock looks outside and he sees the wizard out there, and he's like, oh Jesus, you know, we just helped these kids out and this wizard's gonna kill them. So he starts climbing out the window. The rogue starts climbing out the window. One of the 3 big bad guys runs out the door to go chase after the kids. You know, more crud happens. One of the kids gets shot by a crossbow bolt and killed. They managed to take out 2 out of the 3 bodyguards. The last remaining bodyguard and the wizard, they get on horses and they run. So, and of course, this happens in the middle of the night, and they're just screaming and yelling for people in the village to come out and see what's going on. And the villagers start coming out, and all they see is this battle going on, and they don't understand what is happening or why it's happening or anything like that. They see one of the characters has this dead child in their hand, one of the children that the villagers were looking for. And so, they're like, oh my God, you killed this kid. And they're like, no, we didn't. And there's all this confusion going on. And I said, well, I mean, at this point, I was like, we're just gonna have to wrap up, and we're gonna have to, take care of this at the end of the session. So now you're wondering, okay, I gave you that giant story. So now what's the point? So, the session ends. Basically, everyone but one player in the group was pissed. They were just they were so angry. They were like, this is garbage. This is bullshit. This village sucks. Nobody trusts us. Nobody believes us. And they were like, this is horrible. I mean, we're not. What are we supposed to do in this situation? It's like we're trying to save these kids. We managed to get 2 of them killed now. We managed to get one of the other people that missing killed. We can't trust the sheriff. We can't do it. And so here's the problem, is that because I have the overarching, I can see everything. I know what's going on. I know that spy, what she's been up to. I know that the sheriff's been mind altered. I know that things are going on. But the players don't know that. And so what the players see instead is they see that there's this big problem. Basically the whole town is against them, and they don't have any way for them to stop that and to prevent this town from not tearing them apart. So it was pretty late, and and this is one of the problems with Roll20. I'm going to say that Roll20, like I said, has lots of things that are really cool. But one thing that Roll20 does not do well, and it's because you were doing it remote, and this is anything to do remote, is that you don't have the engagement of the players at the table. You can't read body language. You can't read facial expression. You can't read. You can't just get the feel of the room, so to speak. Grant Lyon is a professional comedian, and he's on the Alaboom, and he talks about the fact that he can still do like his stand up for for groups via Zoom and things like this, but he can't. It's not the same, right? You can't get the vibe, the feel, and the same thing goes for any performance, right? And in a way, in a lot of ways, Dungeons and Dragons is a performance. It is something where all the players are taking part in basically an ad-libbed play, and so I'd like to think that if I was doing that in person, that session in person, I would have gotten the feel from the room that they were like, "Oh, this is really annoying. I'm really annoyed by this." And they would have had like the feeling like, "Oh, I need to convey my displeasure in person to the person running the game." So I mean, and that's just, it's inherently one of the problems we have, and it's just something I have to get better at, and I think my players have to get better at as well. But anyway, back to the thing. So anyway, players are pissed. But just because they feel like, what the hell? What were we supposed to do? You put us in an untenable situation. Something that we didn't, we don't know who to trust. The one person we thought we could trust all of a sudden backstabs us. Everybody hates us. I think we just, literally like murder hobo, burn the whole town to the ground. And it's one of those things where it's like, I have the ability, as the GM, I have the ability to see everything. I know everything. I know who the spy is. I know that the sheriff's been charmed or had a suggestion spell cast upon him. I know that there's more going on. I know that the player, as soon as the player character showed up in the village, they've been watched from day one, and it's just, and they it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, the players maybe thought that was the case, but they just didn't really do anything about it, and they didn't seek to cover their tracks or see if people were watching them or anything like that. And for and to be fair, as a player, I'm probably stupid too, but players, like, when you're omnipotent in your game world, you forget that the players aren't, right, and the PCs aren't, and that there is there's a disconnect there that's tough to track down. But anyway, my point here is that we got into a huge argument. An argument that lasted for about an hour, of people mad, yelling. Angry, this is garbage, this is stupid, I don't like this. Including Chris. And the thing is that, and Chris took the time to say, and because he's an author and because he writes, he was like, you are destroying the narrative here. And he kind of went through this whole process, and it was just like, and Chris is a very charismatic person, and he's very, very opinionated, and it was one of those things too where I was like, well, you're wrong. I was like, because you don't have the whole story, you don't have the whole narration, you don't know what's going on. This disconnect that you say exists doesn't exist the way you think it is, because you don't have all of the information. And there's that weird line where it's like, if you completely and totally expose everything of the story, and if the player characters come in and say, okay, these children have been kidnapped, but it isn't goblins in the forest, that one person said, it isn't werewolves that's living in the woods, it isn't a traveling band of slavers or anything like that. No, it's this weird crazy death cult that the Baroness is leading, and that's what it is. But let's role play out the investigation process anyway, and have you go through all these leads and ask all these questions. That wouldn't be satisfying at all. And so I was at a loss at that point as to how I could have avoided that situation. And I still don't know how I could avoid that situation. I think that in a lot of ways, playing D&D and playing role-playing games with people, you're dealing with emotions and humans, and for lack of a better term, you have a crucible of of conflict there, right? And if things aren't going your way in a game, and you feel like you're just getting kind of beat down and beat down and beat down and beat down and beat down, like, yeah, there's something to be said about like it's like I'm just not getting any happiness here. I'm just not getting it. But once I get my happiness, once I get my revenge, that'll feel so good, right? And there is some very, very good use of that in teaching a game. One of the things is that, like, I think of like there's all kinds of movies where the bad guys have the upper hand for like an extended period of time, but once, like, the hero is able to break out or whatever, and finally get a little bit of comeuppance, there's that wonderful moment where you're just like, oh yeah, get him. You're just like, yes, that makes you so happy, right? When the bad guys get their just desserts. And I think, in my opinion, my fault as the DM in that situation was that I let the players wait too long to get that feeling. And compounding that, when they finally were able to get that feeling of like, finally we've saved these children. Like, as I said, there was an epic, horrible moment where one of the children was killed by way of the actions of the PCs, and it was devastating to them. I wouldn't say like people were like, oh my god, like emotional, like, oh my geez, but most of them were just like, oh geez, and like, and they're just like, oh man, and this is a grimdark campaign, so it's brutal and it's awful, and it's just, it's tough, right? And so they had a lot of this pent up, like, feeling of nothing they're doing is having any effect or they're succeeding in any way. And then when they finally had a chance to, like, say, we saved these kids, we saved them, I took it away from them. Going back, if I could go back to that moment, what I would have done is I would have had them appear in there as the sheriff was, like, talking to the wizard and like the spy at the same time. Like, have that be the moment, right? Don't have them arrive just when they see the wizard casting the spell and they realize that he's been modified and more, and then have them have the ability to give the beat down to, like, the wizard, or maybe the wizard escapes, but like, give the beat down to the bodyguards, save the children, prove to the people that, like, this baroness, this lady of the land, is this evil human being and she needs to be brought to justice. And then we could have just fast forwarded to the end of that point, and we could have just said, like, the townspeople surround her keep, and barricade it, and eventually the Duke's men show up and they arrest her and whatever, and then we can move on to the next chapter. But I didn't do that, and that was unfortunate. And the thing is that that's on me. I'm the storyteller. I'm the story creator. I'm the one that needs to do that, and that's something where I, as the storyteller, I had an idea of what I wanted the story to be, but I needed to modify the story slightly and wrap it up a little quicker so the players could get the happiness that they deserved for all their hard work. And so, yeah, I would like to say, Chris was wrong for berating me for an hour about why I can't tell a good story, and maybe he shouldn't have been so vociferous about it. And let's be fair, after the fact, everybody, like, said, look, we're all sorry. It's like, hey, it's like we're all friends. It was a good release of anger, and like, and to be honest, I think it was that anger of the anger they had over these NPCs, like, escaping their justice, was directed at me, right? And maybe rightfully so, but they got their cathartic release, because after the fact, to a person, well, nearly everyone, mean, whatever. It's no big deal. But basically, they all either at the time, and this is true, everybody at the time of the argument said, "You're right. We shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't all be ganging up on you." And then many of them after the fact also texted me and said, "Hey, sorry about what happened." And it's just like, and I told them all, it's like, you know what? Every single good and great friendship I have had has had to be put to the test and put to the fire at some point to test that relationship. And then everybody comes out of the other end better friends and with a better understanding of how their friends' minds work and how they feel. And we safeguard that friendship even more after the fact. So I feel bad that I didn't give the players the ending they deserved for that adventure, but I don't feel bad for our friendship because all of us have become better friends after the fact. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, I would love to hear about your giant arguments you've had at your table at some point over an RPG. I definitely have had plenty of mine. I can tell stories all day long, but I'd rather focus on something positive or something like maybe in my comments about like just where I think D&D is headed or what I think D&D should have, something like that. I'd love to, maybe I'll do something like that. But if anybody has any suggestions of videos that I should do like this, as far as the tales from behind the DM screen, I'd love to hear about those. If you have, I rarely ask this, but because I always feel weird. But if you watch these videos, I'm guessing most of you are subscribed to this video, my video channel. But if you aren't, please hit the subscribe button. That'd be really cool if you did that. Hit the like button. Give me a comment. Do whatever. It's one of those things where it's like I'm going to be focusing on RPG talent, I think, for the rest of this channel for as long as it goes, and that's kind of what I want to do. It's what I really, really enjoy. And so if you like this stuff, I would appreciate if you do all of those things. But anyway, regardless, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. I know these are kind of long, and I know I jibber jabber quite a bit, but I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. And until next time, just be the best version of you that you possibly can be. All right, bye-bye.